This is Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. A quick disclaimer. The content you find here is neither intended to be therapy or diagnosis. It is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to yet another episode of Me, I Am Mental, the podcast, where we endeavor to bring you factual, credible, useful, and engaging content on mental health. My name is Charles ADEDE. My co-host Darren Collins, unfortunately, is once again unavailable. Anaugua kwa wale wanajua Kiswahili. So we wish him a quick recovery, and we hope he'll be available during the next episode. We miss him very much. Darren, best of luck. Now, today we have with us Debra Ajwang, aka Anditi. She will explain to us where the name Anditi comes from, and if perhaps she'll also allow us to use the name Anditi throughout this podcast episode. Debra will be talking to us about mental health in the legal profession. Very, very interesting topic of conversation, I'm sure. Apparently lawyers are legally insane for the most part. We just don't know enough about it. Yes, but before we get into the meat of the conversation, let's do a bit of housekeeping. Darren usually does this. He has a very nice way of putting it, and I'm trying to fit into his long shoes. So let's see. We at Me Are Mental, the basic point of Me Are Mental is to join the conversation on mental health by helping however we can in raising mental health awareness through conversations like this. We invite different people to the podcast, whether they are professionals in the mental health space or just people with lived experiences, so that we all lend our voices to this space that is gaining a lot of interest amongst people. And we applaud everybody who is participating in the space because we do believe that mental health is a very, very critical aspect of our lives. So we are asking for your support as members of our audience by subscribing to our channel, our YouTube channel, also subscribing to our audio channels on Spotify, among other places, and listening in, participating however you can, asking questions if you have any. Follow us on social media, share with your friends and loved ones. And yes, let us all, participate actively in this process. Our website has most of our information. Our website is meiammental.me. That is meiammental.me. I came up with that very clever, name, even if I say so myself. Okay, so that said, thank you very much for tuning in. Let's jump right into the conversation. But first, we want to know a bit more about our guest, Anditi. If you could just start by telling us a bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you so much for having me on the show. I started out I was born and raised in Nairobi. So I'm what we call Bontao.
Mademo Nairobi.
Not Kanairo. Not Kanairo. And I grew up in two different places. First was in a place called Madaraka. I don't know if you know Madaraka, near Nairobi West. And then I moved to Langata. So a greater part of my childhood was in Langata, otherwise known as LA.
Yes.
So mimi ni msichana wa LA. So I was in primary school in South B. I used to take the bus, KBS.
Yes.
All the way to Nairobi West and then walk across Mombasa Road. When I drive through Mombasa Road nowadays, I can't fathom how I used to cross that road at 9 years old.
Wow.
But I used to do it. That just tells you how safe I grew up in a time when things were safe and, we could walk around, eat zambarao from the Indians' compounds, get chased by dogs. That was my childhood. Yeah. And then I moved on to high school, which I was in Precious Blood High School, Riruta, boarding school. I enjoyed it.
Also known as PB.
Yes. I must say that I enjoyed it because I know that there are people who are traumatized from their experiences in high school. And maybe we'll talk a bit more about that. But I enjoyed my high school, possibly because I found ways of coping, with what I found difficult or the challenges, and just made the most out of high school. Childhood doesn't come; it doesn't last forever, so make the most out of it. So, and then I went on to Moy University, which is where I studied law. Interesting fact is that was actually not my first choice. I'm sure Charles is wondering how.
Okay, I'm curious because law is considered to be way out there. It's one of the, so either you're a doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Yes.
So if there are any other, did you want to be a teacher perhaps?
I actually wanted to do music.
Oh, fascinating. Okay,
Yes.
Pray tell.
So maybe if you talk to me nicely enough, I might just sing. But that's what I wanted to do. And of course, that was offered under business education. So that's what I selected. And then when I went to my dad and told him, he asked me, when somebody studies medicine, they become a doctor. When somebody studies engineering, they become an engineer. When somebody studies architecture, they become an architect. When somebody studies music, what do you become? And I didn't have an answer. And that is how my dream died. I was dismissed, and that is how I ended up studying law. But I still pursue music on the side.
Did you have any input in the selection of now switching to law, or was it dictated to you?
No, I did actually. That was my second option.
Okay.
It was something that I did want. I had an interest in. People ask why. Because I was a very, for lack of a better word, an argumentative child.
Okay.
So I was always the one, we are sorting out cases, kuna kesi kwa estate. I'm the one in the middle,
yes.
Or putting forth, a position. We are not going to agree with this. So that was my nature. That's my nature. So it sort of it aligned with who I was. So having not been given the chance to do music, which I loved, I ended up with the second option, something which I felt resonated with my personality.
Okay. And so how was your experience at Moy?
Moy University was an interesting place. One, I liked the fact that I was away from home, away from Nairobi. So it allowed me to be...
Being a small town?
Yes.
How is that? Most people who come from Nairobi to smaller towns find it a bit slow.
I actually enjoyed it.
Okay.
Moy University, I don't know if you've been there, it's like in a nice, quiet, green, it's not in town actually.
Yes.
The main campus is out of town in a place called Keses. So I really liked that because I was coming from Nairobi where there's, it's hustle and bustle, the traffic, noise. I liked the peace and quiet, and it was cold, yes, but I enjoyed that. I liked that.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked being away,
a bit of freedom.
And a bit of freedom as well.
Growing up.
So allowed me to, my parents were very strict. So going out to the disco was a no-no. But now in the university in Moy, I'm far away. I can do this, I can explore and see what it means to sleep with shoes on your feet.
Wow. Okay. I've never done that. Have you? Anyone sleep with shoes?
That's what I call going out all night.
I know. Okay. Yeah. And so, how did the training? Firstly, you say that there was something about your choice of law which aligned with your personality. It maybe makes us it possible for us to just discuss this a bit. What do you think are the general attributes that make for or personality or character that contribute towards being a good lawyer? Or is it even a thing, you reckon?
I think it is a thing.
Okay.
Because one, it's the studies first and foremost, and of course also the practice is very intense and rigorous. Requires you to, take in a lot of information. Sometimes within a short time for you to appreciate, say, a case that you're handling. So if you look at it from the university perspective or the legal study perspective, you need to be able to. So first, you need to be smart.
Bottom line,
I don't want to sound cocky, but but you need to be smart because you're going to be taking in a lot of information, cases. That's the nature of the training. So the content, and then appreciating legal principles, being able to know where to find the law. So it's a lot, and we would actually encompass, you'd admire, you'd look enviously at those who were doing other courses, which were not necessarily as demanding, but you couldn't really do it. Somehow, yes, once in a while you'd find a way to have an outlet, but it was quite intense. So in terms of, first, you need to be smart. Two, I think you need to be able to, one of the key things is pay attention to detail. I think also, depending on where you want to practice, I wanted to practice, in court. You need to be able to speak, express yourself well. First, be able to synthesize your case and be able to present it, in court. And that's an art. There are those, of course, lawyers who I know practice, away from court. So they have other skills, but all these things are important. And then the other thing I think which is important, I had mentioned that as I was growing up, I was the person who, felt, I could put forth a case, I could kutetea watu, Activism, and that's also a thing. I think if you're going to be a lawyer, it is important to be able to defend. I think my personal opinion is that you defend, the law and what's right, what's wrong and all, and you defend your clients. So you need to have that in you.
A bit of a moral compass,
yes,
ethical sort of orientation.
Yeah. So,
okay.
So I think that was it. For me, that's what aligned with what I was doing. Yeah.
Do you need a thick skin?
Absolutely. I was coming to that. Because of now, I've taken you through, how rigorous it is and intense. And then the practice becomes even more intense. One, you're expected to be excellent at your job. So you have clients who, they call us, basically, clients expect you to know everything. In fact, Charles, when they say, learned friend, I think sometimes that term is abused. I'll use my own example because, I'm in a space where I'm in-house counsel. And so I'm not specializing. But what I end up doing is I end up being a jack of all trades. That puts a lot of pressure on you because you're the expert in labor law, you're the expert in intellectual property, you're the expert everybody comes to you and everybody expects you to know everything. Sometimes that everything goes even beyond the law. So for you to keep up with that and to keep up with that expectation, you have to keep reading, you have to appraise yourself of what's happening in the legal space, outside of the legal space. You're always on toes, and we are constantly reading. But you don't only read the law. You have to keep appraised of, people expect that lawyers know everything. That's why I'm telling you, this learned friend sometimes is...
it could contribute to some of the strained lawyers, obviously.
It is because there are other factors as well, but I think that plays a major role because the expectation from the society is really, really high. Huyu ni wakili. The moment you walk into a room and someone says, wakili, there's an expectation. You have suddenly been elevated, to a certain level where everybody in the room has such a great expectation of you.
It's almost like a priestly class.
Yes.
Okay.
So that puts pressure on us.
So you have to have a thick skin. You have to be smart. You have to be very sort of, you pay attention to detail. You have to either be well read or to be continuously reading. What would you say was your experience like now during the training, especially if you think about the pressures? Your training, did it prepare you adequately for the rigors of practice? Did the training also, was it in some way sort of hurtful or painful, or did it take away some things from you?
I think in some aspect it prepares you for the practice in terms of, the technical skills, the rigor, the ability to read, all that, and synthesize information. So the way that the training is, it does give you that ability, technical skills.
Yes.
But there's other things which it doesn't prepare you for, because it's not just the technical skill that is important. When you come out into the practice, you have to navigate many other things which are not necessarily technical. Then you have other soft skills, which then come into play, which nobody teaches you and nobody prepares you. When you're in college, you're on the books. In fact, as I said, you get very little time to actually interact with people. If you're lucky, you will find that opportunity. But otherwise, it doesn't really prepare you. The training doesn't prepare you. So you come out as a very skilled, highly skilled professional, but not necessarily prepared for the world out here and the practice. So you come out and you find things out here are different from what I expected. So it doesn't really prepare you, unfortunately.
Would you highlight some of the soft skills which you learned through the school of hard knocks, so to speak?
One of them is just being able to manage stress, manage pressure, high pressure. Like when there's so many things going on and there's, deadlines and expectations from all over. How do you manage that? How do you just find yourself? Because you can get lost in that space. So that I have learned through the school of hard knocks, and devised my own methods, because as I said, nobody teaches you. So I've had to learn along the way.
Yeah, I would say that, and I'm not sure this is just for lawyers alone, but possibly many other professions. I see, for instance, in law, because you become, in a way, very specialized. You spend all your time thinking through substantive procedural law, but it's not, during training, you don't get an opportunity to integrate it properly into how life works. For instance, if you end up in a business setting after training, then that's the first time you're seeing, you have to sort of learn now how business really works and begin to see how this law and business intersect. So I can see that those gaps happening. And then I wonder whether it's been your experience as well that because you're so highly specialized as a lawyer, And because of the reputation lawyers have, it's also harder to integrate in yourself in the rest of society and just find space, and how to be okay with other people.
That's true. Because you're so specialized, it requires you to get out, to get out of your own space, of your own skin. Let me put it that way, and that's not easy. From my own experience, I have been lucky. My experience has been slightly different from most other lawyers, because after my training, I went into private practice, but then I moved into the corporate space. So initially, yes, I did face that challenge of this is a business environment. And so your strict legal thinking needs to shift. This is a business. So you're not going to be the kind of person who says, the law says this. The law is very clear. No, the business does not want to hear that. So I was lucky because I did get a chance to train briefly in a bank. And so I got to understand what a business does. What's this business about? What do they care about? And so my thinking shifted. In addition to that, I did get to add on some, I spoke about skills, strict skills that you learn. I increased my skills by doing company secretarial. Now, what did that do? What that did is there are courses which are, you get to do financial courses and other, human resource management. That is what really helped me. Might I add that it wasn't easy because I was doing this as I was working. So it goes back to the pressure. You're trying to upskill yourself because you've realized that this training that I have that is highly specialized, I need to add something onto it for it to become relevant in the work space that I am. So that requires, of course, it means going to school in the evening, you're managing family, you're managing so many other things. But that then made me be able to apply myself in the space that I was working. Yeah. So that's why I say my experience was slightly different. I got the chance to expand, to diversify, let me call it, to diversify my skill set.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I also know someone once said of lawyers that you guys act as if life is about law, but 95% of life is lived outside the law. And that was like them pushing back and wanting to cut lawyers down to size. Like, hey, back off. Listen, I'll come to you for that 5%. And I wonder also when you're working in the corporate, there's a tendency, I think, for when you're a professional in certain industries, to remain on the periphery. So they do their thing. Occasionally they tap on your shoulder and tell you to sign off on something, but they don't really want you to engage in the core business. Yeah. Was that your experience? Did you encounter anything like that? Were there challenges around that?
So initially, that was my experience because, as you say, you're basically a fixer. The lawyer is a fixer. Mm-hmm. So we are going to run this business, do everything that is required, and then if something goes wrong, we'll look for you.
Yes.
But what I did, I took a different approach. And this goes back to, the additional skills that I got, being a company secretary and all. And what I did is I made a deliberate effort to be part of the process. And I actually requested. And I said, if you're going to come to me at the end to sign a contract, I want to know what this contract is about. We are coming up with a project. We are rolling out a new product. I want to be here from the beginning so that when at the end something goes wrong, I'm able to appreciate how we got here. So I'm not coming in to fix something which I completely have no idea of. And by doing that, what I've actually noticed is to speak to what you're asking is you're able to bring value. The moment they see value, then they make you part of the process.
Part of the team.
That's it. They make you part of the team. So the next time that they're doing anything, they'll say, oh, let's call Debra. Let's call Charles. The lawyer, they'll be in the room, the business people, and then but the lawyers are not here. That means you've created value. So they will never go on with a project without having you in the room. And that also actually, in fact, incidentally, it makes your work easier. Because then you're able to anticipate. You're able to look ahead and see and anticipate what are the possible risks of this project. Makes your work easier.
But most people don't want lawyers in the room.
You have to take.
So it's a thing.
You have to take your space.
You have to be the one who asserts yourself.
Yes, you have to assert yourself.
When you're asserting yourself, did that sometimes create blowback? Can it?
Definitely. Yes. So definitely. And I've had my fair share of that.
Yeah.
You have to take your space. But yes, it does come back.
You cultivate
it.
People, and you try to show your value. So those are I think when you're talking about soft skills earlier,
yes.
I think that's what I meant. Isn't it? Those are now the things you learn, and anybody, probably this is just for anybody who finds themselves in that situation, just for your own sanity as well. Because if you're to be effective in your role, then you must be part of the team. Yeah. But it might not necessarily occur to the guys running the show that this is how best, how you would deliver. Yeah. So it has to be you then to go, do the additional.
The extra mile. Yeah, you have to go the extra mile. You can't go in with the mentality of, I'm the lawyer, I'm supposed to tell you what the law is about. No, you have to go the extra mile. Sometimes you will make people uncomfortable, but
because people think lawyers are contentious, even when isn't it?
They do.
The average person thinks that you come in there to be a bit of a problem. A problem,
yes, and to create lawyers are complicated, to complicate things. So you have to change. You have to find a way of changing that narrative. And there your soft skills also come into play, in the manner in which you communicate, and the manner in which you show this value. So you're in the room and we're having a conversation. So I spoke about, for instance, doing financial management. If you're in a room, for instance, looking at the space, using myself as an example, if you're in a room in a bank, and they're having a conversation about financials, and you're clueless, I can assure you will not open your mouth at the end of that conversation and anybody takes you seriously. So it then helps for you to acquire that knowledge. And that's the inroad. So that when they're speaking in the room, you're not clueless. That's how you speak to what is important to them. Because in a business, Charles, you have run a business, it's about the bottom line. Once you appreciate that and you appreciate why that is the case when you're running a business, then you're able to have a conversation with them. And then you're able to speak at the same level. Not you won't become a financial expert, but you understand what they're talking about, And so therefore, when you bring in your contribution in terms of the law, then they listen to you.
Agreed.
Yeah, they listen to you.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. So, just randomly, would you highlight maybe 2 or 3 or 4, however many of those come to your mind, some of the positive outcomes from a mental health standpoint that your experience, both in training and practice, have contributed to you as a lawyer?
Okay. So in training, as I said, I had to create ways of, outlets, after cramming, 100 cases in contract law, you have to find a way of distressing. Solomon versus Solomon. Once your head is full of Solomon versus Solomon, you have to find a way of distressing.
Yes.
So one of the ways, as I said, is I got involved in other activities that are not just about learning and school. So I did do the night outs, not too many, but a little. But then
slept in your shoes.
Yes, I slept in my shoes, and then. But I also was involved in moot courts. So now moot courts is practical, scenarios where you sort of have a scenario of a court, and learning certain skills. So while that was a technical learning space, what it did is it exposed me to lawyers outside of my university, because I then got to travel and go out to, even out of the country and be involved in these activities. So you meet other people and you socialize with them. So it sort of gives you a little bit of a breather away from, more university Eldoret. That was one. Secondly, and Charles, please don't laugh at this. I participated in Miss Campus.
Oh. I'm not laughing.
You're not laughing, yes.
No. I'm actually just smiling.
Yes. Very different. In fact, I think I must have been the first lawyer to ever do that, because we are prim and proper and serious.
And the word that comes to mind is prissy.
Yes.
Yes, but yes. And here you are. Yeah.
This is
prancing down a walkway.
This thing is the preserve of people doing other courses.
Yes.
Yes. Who are not considered,
yes.
that prissy, and that was fun.
Oh,
so those are the things I did, that to just distress and feel the experience of being a student, being in campus. So I enjoyed student life. Or the other thing I did was I was involved in campus politics. Yes, I was very adventurous. So yes, so student. I was not successful though.
Yes.
But
in the catwalk thing, or the student politics, or both, or are you being modest? There is also that risk that you're just suffering from a case.
Okay, so in one of them I was successful.
Yes.
The least expected, because lawyers and politics go hand in hand. Right?
Yes, that's your yes.
So that one I was not successful.
That
one I was not successful. I was successful in the other one.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So
okay.
that's what I did. I also did a bit of sports, not too much, but a little.
That's interesting, because you had a full life. You explored socially, you explored personal spaces, you explored, all these things, despite having an incredibly rigorous syllabus or timetable. Where did all the energy come from? You never felt spent sometimes, like it's too much?
Charles, one of the things I still get asked to date is, where do you get energy from?
Oh, I see. You're a real energizer bunny. Okay.
Yeah. So, but also the other thing that I say is, when I get asked that question, I always tell people, you create time for what is important.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, school at the time, studies and books was important. But I've always felt like, and this goes way back even from high school. In fact, I was surprised. I was looking at my leaving certificate the other day from primary school. And the head teacher wrote, is involved in sports. And I was like, oh, you mean I actually started this thing a long time ago, and was involved in art. So then I realized this has actually been who I have been all along. And so regardless of any situation, I've always felt like it's important to be a whole, to be holistic and develop every aspect of yourself. I really don't think you'll be able to navigate the challenges of this world and actually enjoy the benefits of life if you don't engage all the aspects of your life, and that's why for me it's very deliberate. It's not by chance. I will find a way of making time for sports, making time for singing, making that for whatever any other activity apart from just the strict, whether it's work, or if it's school. So I did that in school, and it was very deliberate.
Because even now you're a golfer, you sing, you are a Rotarian, isn't it?
Yes.
That's how you, over and above, just work.
Yeah.
So you didn't stop.
I didn't stop. Yeah, it's something I started then and still goes.
The roundedness is critical.
Yeah, it's critical.
It helps give you some, like you said, decompress and resilience, balance.
And balance,
and balance
I call it, I like to refer to it as balance.
Okay.
I don't believe in work-life balance.
Like they say, shots fired. Pray tell.
And this is why.
Yes.
This is why, because majority of time, where people talk about work-life balance, they don't actually make it. It's not practical. It's theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just believe that you find there's life balance. There's no work-life balance. There's life balance.
Take us through that. It would be nice to just try and unpack that a bit. I think it's a very important point you're making.
So you have so when they speak about work-life balance in the office, I hardly ever find, okay, so what do you mean by this? What's the practicality of this? Because you have strict deadlines, you expect deadlines, and then there's no effort by organizations to specifically ensure that these people actually have something outside of the work. But in a few organizations, I've happened to work in a few, you find it's deliberate. So I'll give you an example. They encourage their staff to be involved in sports. And they're actually sports teams. And the organization actually finances this. That's deliberate. It's not theoretical, because I don't believe you can tell someone have work-life balance and then you're not deliberate about how you do it. So I have a challenge with work-life balance. I think there's balance.
And what about on a personal level? Suppose if we cascade it down to you as an individual, are you able to achieve work-life balance, or does it mean if I sort of get what you're saying is a lot of it does depend on firstly how your organization is set up and how it runs.
Yes.
If it doesn't give you that opportunity, then at an individual level, it becomes impossible to pursue.
Yeah. But you can, and why I say, so at the individual level, you'll be required to find, opportunities to have balance in your life. So at this point in life, you're juggling many things. There's work, there's family, there's relationships, there's many things, finances. And for you to achieve balance, you have to be deliberate about it. For instance, how have I done it? I said I've created time for other things. You talk about the golf, etc. How does this help me to create this balance? So I come from a very high pressure environment at work. It's very easy to carry that into the other space. Very, very easy. You come home and you're stressed so it's important to break, to sort of create things which allow you to have a buffer. So if I come from the office and I go past the gym, by the time I get to the house,
I've decompressed.
So transition, or if, I play a round of golf over the weekend, I get to walk for many hours and, just enjoy the fresh air, have my mind focused on something else. That also allows you to decompress. So there are many things that, you can do. For some people, it's traveling. For many things.
I'll tell you what, sometimes I can go through a situation at work, and the tension and stress can stay with me for a week. Just one day that stirs me up so bad. and it's just there in my system for a week, and I can feel it. You just feel it. You're just carrying this thing, and sometimes you're asking yourself what's going on. Then you can track back to that
Where it
day
started.
or that, yeah. And if there are no, sometimes you don't have the fortune of having other good things intervene or those breaks.
Yeah.
So it's just maybe this tough thing piling
piles
up.
up.
That. And then maybe by Friday you feel like killing a few people.
Yes. Yes.
Given half a chance, you would commit murder. So I hear you. I think it's a very, very interesting thing you say about if you have the opportunity to create buffers, so that the toxicity from certain situations and spill over into other aspects of your life. Like you can carry that home.
Yeah.
And maybe your children or people they bear the brunt of what's going on. Okay. Now, tell me, you're a lawyer. Lawyers are peculiar people. What are some of the mental health challenges that you reckon would be that come with that territory?
So
and why
Okay.
also?
I think while mental health, challenges will be. It manifests itself in various ways. I'm not a mental health expert, but I've had, chance to learn about it. So it could be depression. I think that is one that I've actually seen and spoken to a few professionals, lawyers. And why does it happen? I think for two reasons. First and foremost, I think it's a high pressure environment, work profession. And then two, the expectation, societal pressure. And that I think actually is worse than the first one.
Oh, okay.
In my assessment, I think it's actually worse than the first one because we are placed at such a high pedestal in the society. It's one of the profession. It's referred to as the elite profession. We are placed at such a high pedestal that, Charles, you always feel the need to live up to that. You may just want to say go and open your firm in Homa Bay. I would love to do that. But then there's this expectation. You've been placed at this high pedestal, and you ask yourself whether you're living up to that expectation. That comes with many. That's one example. There's how you look, what you drive, now these are real pressures. And the people and we are going through this in the profession, because then you really want to live up to that expectation, and sometimes it's not possible. Or what you need to do to live up to that standard requires you to do some not very great things, So I think that's it. You see lawyers probably drive certain cars or look a certain way, dress a certain way, and you feel like you need to be at that level. But we are all different. We all have different points in our careers and journeys. So I think that is putting a lot of pressure on lawyers, that a lawyer needs to be, the society expects you to be a certain way.
I have an interesting story around that. So there was a time when I was running this, the studio.
Yeah.
And at some time, because we were running around so much from, recording this to that gig, and I thought I needed a car that would be able to, that's fuel efficient, has a lot of luggage space. That even if it was to be banged around, and then I could give that to a driver and get them to just take things around. And I wanted to trade in the car I was driving then for a Pro Box, because I thought I'm being practical here. I'm a business person. Bottom line is And then I remember asking somebody, running that story by someone, telling me, I think I should get me a Pro Box. It makes all the sense in light of what I'm doing. The first thing I was told is, dude, you're a lawyer. You can't do that. Okay, sawa bas. and I would like to say I was able to rise above it and go ahead and buy my Pro Box, but I didn't. So yes, the pressure still got to me, and so that happens a lot. I also know that there are instances when I've shown up dressed in a certain way, and I can see that because of the way I'm dressed, the people are, even when it's not necessarily a professional setting, people feel as if you're letting the profession down by being casual. So it's like you always have to be in character.
Yes.
Regardless.
Yes. There's a box that's been created.
You can never
for us.
let your hair down.
Yeah. And we have to fit into this box.
You have to fit into that box.
Yeah. And so maybe I may just add, so because of these because of these pressures, so there's the one that I mentioned. I focused on one because I felt it's actually the one we are discussing. But the first one, about the high pressure environment, what then that does is we find ourselves in situations where the pressure is too much, and like you said, it just piles up. If you don't have an outlet, it piles up. And then now you find that we have instances where we are dealing with alcoholism, and of course I do know that that's a symptom. I've had a bit of experience with that, and we talk about, it's actually a conversation that we're having with the Law Society. But then I keep saying the alcoholism is not the issue. It's not what we need to resolve. Alcoholism is a manifestation of an underlying mental health issue. And so
there is like serious prevalence of alcoholism.
There is, yeah. We may not speak about it. We may, once again, goes back to the image. We must maintain that image, but the reality it is.
Darren was saying another time we were talking about lawyers that every time he pictures a lawyer working, he always thinks of a guy who has his file or laptop in front of him with a glass of whiskey next to him. And so it's on brand that we are sort of thought of as. What do you think about alcohol being seen as cool, as being sort of baked into that image of a successful lawyer and that sort of thing? Does it perhaps hide a problem?
Absolutely. I think it's actually very easy for you to miss, that this is actually a problem, because it's cool. It's seen as cool. So nobody's going to interrogate why every time I see this guy working, why is it that he has, a glass of whiskey next to him? I mean, it's daytime, it's 2:00. Why do you have the glass of whiskey? You could have it later in the evening, or you could have it, over the weekend or on Friday. So it actually, because it's seen as cool, and that's not just an issue with the legal profession. Of course, we have. I think we have a serious alcoholism problem. Yeah, but it's seen as cool, And so when it's seen as cool, nobody interrogates that this could actually be a reflection of an underlying problem, you know? Yeah. It's even got to a point where, I mean, of course, this is our younger colleagues. It's actually celebrated when you can take the most. Like when you can drink yourself almost to a...
I want to tell you a story again from when I was looking for pupillage. I was young, impressionable. There's a particular gentleman lawyer who was hugely successful at the time, and I really looked up to him. And I could have killed to join his firm, and for him to be my pupil master. And I approached him. Their offices were in a penthouse. He had a whole, like, a massive room, complete with a sofa, a lounge. It's complete. I was thinking, oh wow, this is life. So he tells me, listen, you wait for me. We go somewhere. So that was sort of interview. So yeah, I jumped into his very, very sleek BMW. We went somewhere, and then he asked me whether I drink, and I told him at that time I wasn't drinking. I was still a teetotaler, and I told him I don't drink. He told me you have to learn to drink, and you have to learn how to hold your drink. So there's two things. It's just
how to drink.
And I'm telling myself, oh, baptism. Wow. Okay, let's see where this goes. So he tells me that he's going to, introduce me into this art of this thing. And he buys me 2 bottles of Pilsner. Because he said they're sort of mild in terms of how they taste and entry point, sort of. So I'm thinking, hey, and because he is who he is really literally some sort of demigod in my eyes. So I'm hanging on to every word, and I'm literally taking notes, about how to be. So he buys me the Pilsner. I struggled with my first bottle. About an hour goes by. We're still sitting there. Obviously, I'm beginning to fret a bit because I'm not used to really hanging out. And, I start another second one. Just as I'm about to complete, 2 bottles come, and I'm thinking, how does this work? So we were there for about 6-7 hours, and I think by that time I had tried to take about 7 or 8 bottles, and I was beginning to feel sick like a dog, right? So on my way home, because he was dropping me home, at some point, I upchucked. It was very messy and ugly. Thankfully it wasn't in the car, but it was really messy. I got home. The following day was a Sunday, and I was sick, man. I was sick. At the end of it, I told myself, so, kujita kama mkutano, yes. I told myself, is this what it means to be a lawyer? Because he was very insistent that deals are cut in these places, and you have to, this is... I said, listen, I don't care. I'm not going to do this. I'm just not going to do this. So, thankfully, shortly after that, I got employed by somewhere else, so I didn't have to take up that pupillage. But yeah, that just shows that it can. You're also socialized in some ways to begin to consume alcohol and substances as part of what it means to be, in the profession. And so, like you're saying, you can see where a championship can be held amongst young lawyers as to, hey,
who took the most? Umekunywa mzinga ngapi?
Umekunywa mzinga. You can hold you're the guy.
You're the guy. This guy. you know.
Well,
So that,
it is a problem.
It is a problem.
I have a question around that. So there is the alcoholism, but what creates, like, what is it about being a lawyer that creates that incredible pressure? What exactly is it in practice that creates that pressure on a person?
I think it's the nature of the job, first and foremost. Two things. I think first, the nature of the job in terms of the things you deal with. You solve people's problems, Charles. That's it.
Yes.
So it's not very... It's not always nice. You know, somebody comes to you, I've lost money, I need it recovered. So the nature of what you deal with, I think you solve people's problems. So you carry all of them. Unless you find a way of detaching yourself from those cases, you actually end up carrying them. Yeah. But secondly, I think it's just maybe the way we have got used to handling, the work. Okay, so I said I've had the benefit of working in a business environment. And I think in the law firm setting, which I've also worked, I think we have very lean teams. And so you will find one person is doing a lot of work. So the sheer magnitude of the work.
I know guys who do 16 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, a day. Easily.
Sometimes
24.
Sometimes 24. Sometimes, I mean, of course, if it's seasonal, it's okay, because even we in the in-house, we have seasons where you just know,
it's coming.
It's coming, and for 2-3 days you're going to be operating on 3 hours of sleep, but it's seasonal, But I think for the guys who work in the firm, sometimes it can be, you're handling these cases, you have to do your pleadings, you're the same guy, depending on how the structure is. So what I think is, maybe we haven't, going back to what we spoke about earlier about skills, and, maybe we need to relook at how we run our establishments, and possibly get professionals to help us come up with structures that make doing work easier. I've always said I don't believe in hard work, Charles. I believe in working smart, and I live it. And I don't have to be the one to do everything. That's the other thing. If you structure your establishment in such a way that you're able to delegate, then it takes the pressure away from you. But if you're everything, if you're the guy who's drafting the pleadings, you're the guy who's doing the submission, you're the guy who's going to court, how does that work?
But nowhere in our training are we taught how to...
No, to run a business.
Because how my understanding is, for the most part, you learn how a law firm is run by apprenticeship during pupillage. And so if your pupil master, for instance, never learned from a good pupil master, so it's some sort of tradition, you just hand
pass it
over.
on.
And so maybe a bit more structure. And maybe also giving over management to professional managers might help. Except lawyers wouldn't do that, because we know we are Kemenyis.
Lawyers aren't. When I say this, I'm sure I'll be under attack.
Yeah.
But lawyers aren't very good managers, Charles.
We are not.
No. But there are few
who are good,
and because they have upskilled. Yeah. When you upskill, then you're able to win, and it means you getting out of your comfort zone and learning something different. And then you also find that lawyers who have worked in the corporate space tend to be better.
Because they get apprenticed again.
They get taught.
Opportunity.
They are put into all these trainings, management training. There's, the corporates they have a certain amount of training hours, that need to be attained. So they need to show that they're enhancing people's skills, and also you benefit a lot from this. I have been very lucky. I must say, because the amount of training I have got from the organizations that I've worked in has really been great. You know, even some things that we take for granted, like leadership skills. The fact that you run a firm does not necessarily, and you're excellent and brilliant at your work, does not necessarily mean that you're brilliant at managing people.
I know.
Okay? You know, and that's why you'll find, if you look at the we call them Ivy League firms, they've sort of come up with this structure, and then you find they even now have a few of them, not many, a few of them have a managing partner who's not necessarily a lawyer. I'm sure you've seen that. In most cases, it's the lawyer, and it's debatable whether he's the best person for the job. But if he has upskilled, then he actually, you'll ask yourself, why is it Charles who's the managing partner and not Debra? It's probably because Charles has some skills that, you know, make him a better manager.
I read a book once called First, Let's Break All the Rules. First, Let's Break All the Rules. It's a very interesting book on human resource management. What they were saying is that the typical model for promoting people within organizations is based off, so you're the best guy at something. Let's say I'm a best mechanic. Because I'm so good as a mechanic, they make me foreman. Yeah. They make me like supervise people, which is complete nonsense. Yep. Because I'm suddenly removed from the thing I know how to do best. I'm probably not equipped at all to do this other thing. But that is the general structure almost all organizations have adopted in terms of sort of remunerating and recognizing excellence. So these guys they came up with an alternative sort of model where they're suggesting, how about you really, really appraise somebody on the basis of what they're really, really good at. Keep them there. Find other ways of acknowledging and remunerating them, but make sure that people manage people, technicians remain technicians like that, but you still make sure that they're recognized and they feel like, you know, they have authority in their spaces and that sort of thing. And they say that people, if you do that, you're more likely to have a really well-oiled and efficient organization. I suppose that in a way is what you're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And if you just, you know, a slight deviation or slight addition is that you, in addition to identifying people who have, you know, those skills or having people do what they are good at, you can upskill.
You can also upskill.
You can also
so
upskill.
You can, you can also have
a mix.
Yes, because certain things require like you know, like
so you can have people who are excellent in terms of their technical skill, but then they also have additional, you know, skills like people skills. Somebody's very good with people and all, and so you transition them into management. I'll give you a classic example. I worked with one Christopher Kiwumi in when I was in Barclays. He was the head of legal department, and then he transitioned into HR.
Oh, okay.
Very unique.
Yes,
right?
That's very unique.
But the organization realized he had certain unique skill set. So yes, he's a lawyer, but when he was heading this department, they realized he's good with people because HR is about people. And they transitioned him.
Okay.
You know, so that's I give that example, and it's possible.
Yes.
But you need to first know your people and identify what is.
And even just recognize from the very beginning that model is useful. Like you must, because I think maybe many law firms and professionals generally might be blind to that idea. We tend to focus a lot on technical competence at the expense of everything else. Okay. Question. What about the system? Does the system itself create its own challenges for lawyers? Say you're dealing with a court system, you're dealing with school system, the way they run the systems.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on that? The registries, for instance.
They definitely do create, contribute to the challenge, because, you know, if systems are not run efficiently or effectively, then it means you're putting in double the effort to get a particular return. So if I could go to court and file my documents and churn this out within 2 days, it takes me 4 days.
I know.
You know? I mean, one of the reasons I really enjoyed court practice, you know, in fact, one of my lecturers and good friend says, you know, Debra, this is a waste of talent. You should be in court, you know. But one of the things that made me start to think about moving was the hours we used to spend on the court corridors. I mean, I enjoyed talking to lawyers. I enjoyed catching up with lawyers and drinking tea. You know, what was it called? What is it called? Growers.
Growers, yes.
You know, drinking very thick milk tea and mandazi. I loved it. We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And that's the time when you talked to seniors, and that's the only time you could talk. I really enjoy that. But the sheer amount of time wasted on those corridors just drove me crazy. And I said, no, there has to be a more efficient way of spending my time. You know, so that was one of them. So that contributes, because then it gets very frustrating. You have the pressure from this side to meet your client's objectives. I mean, client's expectations, but then the system does not allow you to do that within this time, and that's why you even find, the other day I was talking to somebody who consulted me on a matter, a succession matter. And then she says, you know, we were in court about a month ago, and we did attend court, and the judge pronounced that this order was given, but it's now a month and we haven't got the signed order. What do I tell them? I was at pains to explain. Now, you know what happens is they think it's the lawyer.
Yeah, you're failing.
The lawyer is failing. And that's why they're calling me. Because they now think their lawyer is fake, or he's taking them for a ride. So they call me and say, Debra, you know, but we were in court and we were sitting there. And the judgment was pronounced. But now, a month later, we haven't actually got a signed order. That's the system. You know? So that's part of it. It plays a big role in making this, in contributing to the challenges of the profession, you know. And unfortunately, sometimes, sad as it may be, you find that our colleagues end up finding creative ways of dealing with that, which shouldn't be the case. And that also leads to another problem, because you can get into trouble. Yeah, and we've seen our colleagues getting into trouble and either losing licenses or losing clients, or, you know, so it just continues. When the system doesn't work, then it becomes very difficult to be efficient, you know, as a lawyer.
Are there special challenges relating to that female lawyers face?
Interesting question. Definitely, Charles. Of course, we are all professionals. We are all lawyers. I like to say, you know, this. I try to avoid, you know, female lawyer and lawyer, but we all qualified.
Yes,
you know. But then when you get into this space, definitely there are challenges that are very unique to us. Some of them have to do with balancing, you know, between we have certain responsibilities, so family, life, and all. So that becomes a challenge. So you find in some spaces you may not. I once worked in an organization where at one point I asked my boss for permission to go to a school function. And he made a comment and said, you ladies are always asking for permission. I would stop hiring women. That really put me off. Because it's not like it's all the time. But then, why it put me off is because, in fact, I actually called him out. I called him out because I said, boss, the reality is that you're able to sit here because there's somebody else going for the school functions. He had never thought about it like that. I told him, yeah. I said, that what you said was uncalled for. You're privileged. You're able to sit here and not worry about your children's functions because there's a woman somewhere. And so I think it would just be good to accord us some grace. So that's a major challenge. I've also seen, where you're an expectant mother, and you find that because of the rigor of the job and all, you're not able. It's a challenge. It becomes a challenge. When we are doing litigation matters, you'll be traveling out of town. It's long. It's time consuming. You're in court. You're standing on, and that is a real challenge. Then there's I saved the worst for last.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then there's the one that I don't really like talking about it, but it's the reality, so we must speak about it. Sexual harassment. It happens. It's there. We may not talk enough about it. I think we should. But you find that lawyers, women lawyers, especially the younger ones, get exposed to situations where they're, sexually abused, or their sexual advances, and it becomes difficult for them to. So they're in a situation where you're taking up a job sort of out of desperation, and you're going through certain things which you shouldn't have to go through, but they sort of feel like they don't have a choice. In some organizations where there's no sexual, there's no policy, against that kind of behavior, then it just gets, swept under the carpet because there's no consequence. Yeah, if there's no consequences for this kind of actions. Yeah, so those are the challenges I see. I've had some colleagues talk about being in spaces where you are sort of not given opportunities because you're a woman. But I personally have a different view of that, because I think it's a catch-22. So you need to prove yourself, I think. I strongly believe that you need to prove yourself in terms of your skills and your experience before you speak about I'm a woman. But people have, and I don't want to water down their experiences, but I've talked to friends who've gone through experiences where you're actually not given an opportunity because it is felt that because you're a woman, you're not capable. And yet you have the skills and experience just like anybody else does. Yeah. But that's, of course, I don't think it's unique to the legal profession. Mm-hmm. We go through it, but I don't think it's unique to the legal profession. Okay. Yeah.
And what about young lawyers?
Yeah, so the young lawyers, I mentioned the one of sexual harassment. That's where it happens the most.
No, but now generally, just not just female lawyers, but generally speaking, are there unique challenges that currently you would think young lawyers are facing?
One of them, I think, is there are a few challenges they face. One is just being in spaces where they are sort of misused. So you find they're given work that is not commensurate to what they're being remunerated. And then also you find people who are, and it's good we are speaking in a space of, mental health, where you find people are given assignments which have nothing to do with what they were hired to do. I've heard of people being sent to do laundry. Were you sent to do laundry? Were you sent to do laundry?
Thankfully, no.
I wasn't. The beauty. I was in an Ivy League. I was in Ivy League. But I've had people are sent to do laundry.
Yes.
And those kind of things. So yeah, I think young lawyers face that. Those are the major challenges, because
do you see as if there's been this sense that the space is getting crowded, the opportunities are shrinking, so to that extent there is a lot more tension regarding stability and growth among the young lawyers?
Yes, absolutely. We are now, I think, about 24,000 lawyers. That's a huge number, and as much as we have a new provision that allows lawyers to set up their own firms, I personally think it's hard. You're not yet equipped. You're just admitted. You're not yet equipped to manage a firm. Just what we've been talking about. So the space is really small. We are all trying to, I call it the Red Sea. So we are all, you can imagine like if you were in the sea and then, piranhas. So it's all red. We are all there. All after the same thing. So it's bloody. Everybody's going after the same thing. So it's not easy. And I know young lawyers have had to resort to even change and pursue other professions or businesses. I've been surprised sometimes when I've met somebody who says, who sells, I think, shoes. And in the conversation, she says, "Oh, by the way, I'm a lawyer." I'm like, "What?" While I encourage, entrepreneurship and all, sometimes it's sad if somebody was forced to get into that because...
Yeah, it would be a different story if they're doing it because they enjoy it, and maybe it is,
If you do, it's okay.
But when it is like just by sheer necessity. That you would rather have really made it as a lawyer, but you can't, and therefore you end up
I've also met lawyers who say now situations where you find people have got into fishy transactions and deals, all in the name of trying to live up to this societal.
Because we do have that going on as well, that we have to look a certain way.
Yes.
That you can't show up in a pro box. Thank you very much.
Exactly. So, now, if you can't show up in a pro box and you don't have briefs that can pay you enough to get that VX or V8, or Lexus, then you end up getting into shady transactions. Gold scam and those kind of things.
What do you think is the role of technology? How we so there is technology can enhance and enable our processes, but there is also now a real risk looming. That is there a chance that we are going to be wiped out of? And is that going to is it going to ramp up the pressure on? How do we navigate that?
Technology is a good thing. First, I'll start by saying that, and we do need to embrace it. The positive aspects of it in terms of how does it make work easier, how does it help you organize there are offices which still have a lot of paper. To some extent, I've always said, as lawyers, we really can't avoid
a bit of paper.
But you can make, your office is more efficient, your business is more efficient. So technology is important. But when we get to the point of, to answer your question of whether I think we'll be wiped out, I don't think so, Charles. I think it's a fad. It's a phase. AI is here, yes and all. And, somebody asked me the other day, I asked somebody to do a document. Then he asked me, a young person, why don't you chat GPT it? And I was like, I don't even know how to do that. I personally do not think that technology can replace the human aspect, of reasoning and writing, and it's impossible. It's impossible. There's no way a robot, even this, take an example of this conversation. Can somebody create this from ChatGPT? No. I don't think so. I don't think so. There's
nothing to worry about.
I think it's something to watch
and adjust.
It's something to watch and adjust, but I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. So when we are thinking about mental health, we've covered quite a bit of ground. We've explored, some of the challenges, the reasons. But that might be a good thing to also look at potentially. Are there any ideas? Because we're just exploring. We are not pretending to be experts, but these conversations must be had because, for instance, if you're a lawyer, you're the wearer of the shoe. If the shoe is hurting, it is up to you to say it's hurting, and it's also potentially up to you to say how best it can be adjusted. Yeah. So in terms of some solutions to make being a lawyer or the practice a little better from a mental health standpoint, or just health generally. Let's just start, because mental health is part of health. And so do you have any ideas you might want to share? Considering maybe we can start from how do we train the lawyers, then within practice, how practices run, how any ideas which might help.
I think we must start from the foundation in terms of the training. So it's important to have practical courses. Just incorporate those practical courses where you have, somebody come in and train the lawyers on certain skills. And of course, we developed some of the skills along the way, but it's important to start at that point. And then also
from the beginning, it's the syllabus. So as you're learning the technical stuff, you also know about
HR, or about emotional intelligence, or about balancing work pressure, and then in there also talk about mental health, because there's nothing as bad as finding somebody finds himself in a situation where you feel like life is hard and I don't know, and you actually don't know what's going on, or you feel like you don't want to wake up and you don't realize that this is actually what's going on. You're feeling a certain way, but you cannot translate it to an actual, you can't diagnose yourself, and then you also don't know where to go.
You don't have the language for it.
You don't have the language for it, like what is going on with what's happening to me. I feel like, like Chicken Lick and the sky is falling. So it's important to start having that conversation and incorporate it into our legal education. Right from, if it happened, Kenya School of Law. In campus, I was out of campus many years ago. I don't know if they do it, but even at the Kenya School of Law, that's a good opportunity because they are now transitioning.
Right there. There's some value of getting into...
Just there. Introduce that. And it's very easy to get facilitators to do that. So start at that point, and then also in our continuous professional development have those. And we have, to give credit where it's due.
Yes,
the Law Society
is
has
doing a
actually
fantastic
done
job.
that. Yes, we have sessions on mental health, and I must just commend.
They have attended several, and I think it's been brilliant presentations.
Yes. I mean, it's changing, the perspective and what people think about mental health. It's no longer that, that stigma. We don't talk about it, Huh? It's changing, and even people who are, it doesn't mean that when people attend, it's for information. So when knowledge, a lot of this issue is about awareness. I think the key thing for me is creating awareness, so that one, I can identify when I'm going through it, but I can also identify
when someone else
is going through it and assist them to find help. That's very critical for me, and I'm happy that conversation is up. So it needs to just keep going, and where possible, have partnerships with institutions, because there's institutions which offer counseling and all, have those kind of partnerships. I mean, Charles, we partner with organizations to offer training, technical training. Why not offer technical training specifically for lawyers, and say this organization X counseling center has a service provided for lawyers, in fact even free. Yeah. So I think that is that's what we need to do, and it needs to be a continuous thing, because these challenges are continuous. They're with us.
Yeah. And for law firms as well, I think it might be a good idea, because with when the levels of awareness rise, what might happen is, in your day-to-day operations, you're more aware, but also you can structure the running of your law firm in a way that takes into account the mental health needs of the practitioners and your staff, because like you said earlier, most law firms are sweatshops. With the human element is completely disregarded. You come in, you're treated as a machine, you run for 18 hours or 16 hours with the occasional greasing of food, and then you're packed off to go live the rest of your life at home and
be ready for the next hours.
For the next years.
The focus is actually billable hours.
Yes, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. So I think with raising awareness, one of the things or one of the outcomes hopefully might be for more law firms and any organizations that then have lawyers in them, to make room for, in a structured way, for mental health, either through continuous training or opportunities to decompress. That might be a good thing, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it would be. For those who are in corporates, one of the benefits is that they actually offer those services.
Yes.
It's carried under the medical cover, so you have that as an added service, and that really helps. And I mean, the firms can do that.
Can begin to
do that.
To take that up seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. There's an interesting thing which maybe we didn't address a bit, but it might tie into the societal expectations, which is stigma. One of the biggest challenges of addressing mental health amongst many people, especially where lawyers have reputations to maintain, And it's not just amongst your peers that you must maintain this reputation. It's also with your clients, with, say, the system, with the judges so you always have to behave in a certain way. It's very regimented.
Yeah.
And then, so stigma, then, I mean, if you show any vulnerability or if there's any whiff of the sense that a weakness, your adversaries will capitalize on that. They'll tear you down. Then your client may not they may not trust you with their briefs. They may not think you're strong enough to take on the other side and that sort of thing, which makes stigmatizes vulnerability, especially when it comes to mental health. That makes mental health conversations very, very challenging in that space. You have anything to say about that?
Yeah, definitely. It's the stigma is real. It's real, and that means people are not able to be vulnerable. I think what I think is we need to have. It would be great if we had more people coming out to speak. I know it requires a lot of effort and courage. Actually, courage, not even effort, it's courage. That's the word.
Yeah.
That's the word. It requires courage to come out and speak out about experiences. Because when that happens, if that happens, then you'll have people actually saying, oh, it actually happened to so and so, and speak about it. How did you surmount the challenges? What help did you get? And then people feel easier to speak about their own experiences. That's how that's the only way I see it changing. That's the only way you deal with stigma. More people coming out to speak about it. And then slowly people realize, oh, this thing actually...
It didn't kill him.
It didn't kill him. He's okay.
He's okay.
Yeah,
he's thriving.
And he's thriving.
He survived that. He has 9 lives. It's okay.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one. I'm not abnormal for me to go through something like this. You have an interesting name for the program. Me, I'm mental. You tell me about that, but it's interesting that people don't realize that this is actually an illness like any other. The way you can just get cancer. That's part of the cause of the stigma. It is categorized as something else, and people don't understand it. So the awareness also, if somebody comes out and speaks and says, okay, I went through this mental health challenge. It started out as like this, and this is how I identified what it is. And I'm getting treatment, I'm getting help, then you demystify this thing, and people begin to then understand what it actually is, and that it's an illness like any other. It's possible to recover from it.
Yeah. So as we draw this to a close, I just wanted a few comments on lawyers and their social lives, especially the family. There seems to be an indication that we don't fare very well in that space, possibly because we are such, fighters or something. And I don't know whether the pressures of work, all these things also contribute a bit towards that. Do you have any?
Well, I have had that. I've had that. That narrative that lawyers are very, very
contentious,
combative.
Yes, combative.
And
everything is hakietu.
Yes.
Just take a chill pill, man.
Interesting. Before I say what I think, I was at some point I was working in an organization as an in-house lawyer, and this man, probably, much older. So, is it okay to use the word old?
Yes.
We
now it's an issue.
Now it's an issue, but I don't see a problem. Being old is
it is a fact of life, no?
So it's
not ageism.
So this old man comes to to sort out some documentation, historical information that I was to retrieve. And so as I'm assisting him, he can see that it's late. It's about after 5, but he needs his document, and so I'm assisting him to get them. And then he asks me, this was about maybe more than 10 years, and says, "Hey, young lady, you're still in the office now. So who is cooking for you, for your husband?" And I said, what? Hey. So he goes, and I said, let me listen to you. He's an old man, so I respect him. So he goes on and tells me, hey, that's why we fear marrying lawyers. So I said, so who do you prefer to marry? I said, nurses, teachers. And he explained. He said, no, the teacher will go to class by 3:30, 3 o'clock. She's finished with class, goes home to cook. By the time I'm coming home, she has cooked, So anyway, that's about that's about whether we are actually eligible as wife material. Yeah. But coming back to your question, Charles, I think it's more about personalities and not about, yes, of course, certain personalities, and we started out this conversation there, that certain personalities tend to go towards certain professions. Okay, so yes, you need some sort of, to be a little bit tough and, and have some fire for you to do certain of these professions. But I think it boils down to the individuals, and just understanding what your personalities are, and whether you're able to gel.
Self-awareness.
I think, yes, it comes a lot with self-awareness. One of the things, and I told you, part of me getting into the legal professions, because I was aware of what my personality was, and that has carried me along. One of my greatest assets or skills is self-awareness, and that has helped me carry through many things. Now, if you're aware of who you are, what your values are, what your boundaries are, I think it then becomes easy to be able to identify somebody who you can easily gel with. There's no situation that's perfect, but I think that's the start point. Yeah. Self-awareness. Then you're able to know, and no, that one is no. And I don't think it's not about the profession. It's about you being self-aware, knowing what can you deal with, what can you handle. And I think that's it. So lawyers can actually make good partners.
Dennis Muskia.
Yeah, so don't fear. We can make good partners.
Okay.
Don't fear.
Fear not.
Fear not. Lawyers can make very...
This is the Timauro declaration. Fear not.
Fear not. We are good people.
Okay. So I think it's a good time to draw this to a close. But I just want, before we do that, perhaps if you have any closing words, any words of wisdom you may want to share with lawyers would be a good audience for, but also maybe just the general public when it comes to the profession in mental health.
I think for my last words to the colleagues in the profession would be, it's okay to be vulnerable. Life is not a straight line. It's not a straight line. It's okay to be vulnerable, but caution, a word of caution, find a safe space. That's the key. Find a safe space. You be vulnerable in a safe space. So identify a safe space where you can be vulnerable, and then you can seek help. Not all spaces are safe, that's one. And then let's talk about it. I think let's talk more about these issues, even generally. Not necessarily about your specific personal challenges, but even generally, and create awareness. I think we have to be deliberate about that. We have to do more. I don't think we are doing enough. We are doing something, but I don't think we are doing enough. Yeah, we need to do more. And then one that I'm really, really passionate about is find ways to de-stress, find ways to decompress. Don't take yourself too seriously. Just find ways of decompressing. Once I met a colleague who told me, so I do write a lot on social media. We didn't get to talk about social media. If I could talk about technology, that's what came to my mind, because that's another challenge. The pressures, societal pressure from social media is
through the roof now.
It's through the roof. Okay, yeah. And lawyers, I don't know if you know, lawyers are on Facebook. Oh, yes. The platform for lawyers is Facebook, majority on Facebook. So that's that pressure, looking at somebody's life, trying to assess, compare yourself and all.
V8.
Yes. You post your pro box.
There's a problem.
And then I post my VITs. There's a problem. Those kind of things. So those are there. But find ways of decompressing. I was talking about the social media platform. So I'm very active on social media.
Posting your V8. I'm kidding.
Not yet. When it comes, I will post. For now, I'm posting my VITs. But, I met a lawyer who told me, Debra, is it that I didn't know you, or is this another personality? He actually asked me that. Because he knew the serious, priestly, and he was like,
who's this person?
Who is this person on social media?
She laughs. She has a sense
of humor. In fact, the sense of it is like, is this you?
Okay.
And I said, yes, it is actually me. It's real. That is me.
Debra came out to play.
I just don't take myself too seriously. And that helps me to be balanced. There's times when I will be serious and I will, wear the dark suit and, but there's times when I will add some color to life. So that's it. That would be my advice to lawyers. Just find ways of decompressing. Be adventurous. Do things out of, the examples you gave. Find ways to decompress. I have many. Actually just choose, from the golf, the hiking, the Rotary, I know today wasn't the day to talk about Rotary, but one of the things, and you will obviously agree with this, is when you find something that you can do that is completely outside of yourself. Service to it gives you just a whole different satisfaction. So in the office you're doing it's the billable hours, you're making money, in this space it's completely different, and that allows you to have a balance. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anditi. You have to tell us, who is Anditi? Where did the name come from? Before we close.
I thought you had forgotten. I thought you wouldn't remember. Because to be quite honest, I don't know what it means.
Okay.
It
just fell on you.
It just fell on me.
It sounds so nice. It's so catchy, like Google.
Yes.
And now it is you.
I've been trying to drop it and to drop my Debra name.
Oh, you want to keep to deed poll it?
And keep Anditi, but the lawyers have refused. See? Yeah. They want the English. They want the name that sounds
very okay. So anyway, thank you so much, Anditi, for coming to our podcast, for sharing personally your points of view on this very, very topical issue of mental health in the profession. I think more than anything, what catches me is strive, from what I hear, I'm going to paraphrase, but strive to be authentic and decompress. Don't take yourself too seriously. Ultimately, a lot of your life is within your hands to do with as you please. So there is what the profession demands, but there is still scope for you to actually have a holistic life. So thank you very, very much for sharing those thoughts. I hope that for our viewers and just our audience, this conversation is meaningful and leaves you with some food for thought and some action points as well. So let us bring this to a close. Just a reminder once again that where you would find us is meiammental.me. That is our website. We'll also find this podcast episode on your YouTube channel, which is Me Am Mental KE, and also on Spotify and a few other audio channels. Like the Swahili say, sina la ziada, mbarikiwe sana, tugange yajayo. Thank you very, very much. My name is Charles ADEDE.